Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father Son Packers podcast, your brand new source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. Coming to you here on a Monday night, breaking down last night's game against the Philadelphia Eagles, where the Packers unfortunately lost 40-33, now falling to 4-8 on the season, losing 7 of their last 8. And I am here, as always, with my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are we doing?
Well, I actually thought that game was better than I expected.
Yeah,
It was
I agree.
the best offensive showing we've had all season.
Definitely.
I mean,
100%.
I had them losing, 30-17? So they only lost by a touchdown instead of two scores.
Yeah, and I mean, they scored a lot of points. The offense looked good. Let's just flow into our gut check since we're already talking about it. But yeah, I thought that the offense looked good, and the defense was really bad. Defense looked a little checked out at times, in my opinion. But you know, the offense was really moving the ball.
Sometimes I'm rewatching that game. It's like, were they checked out or did they just suck? Bad tackling, bad angles. I mean, taking a bad angle isn't checked out. That's just bad play.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
you're
combination.
Trying to cut him off and the guy's just running around you because you went the wrong way.
Yeah, and I thought the offense looked really good. We got to see some Jordan Love. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, went down with an injury this game. We did get to see some Jordan Love. He looked best he's looked, at least.
There is just a ton to unpack.
Oh,
good
my
and
goodness.
bad in this game.
Yes, we're going to get into all of it today, breaking down this game, breaking down what this game means for the Packers this season and going forward. This is going to be a long episode, folks, but we're glad you're here to join us. But while you're here to join us, if you like what you hear, maybe come check us out on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We post when we have new episodes, any news and articles we find interesting, Packers news and injury updates, our thoughts on statements made during Packers press conferences, any and all of that you can find there on Twitter as long as Twitter stays up, at FatherSonPacker. We'd really appreciate the follow. It would really help with our numbers. And then also come subscribe to us on YouTube. We post all these episodes there, as well as on, of course, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts. But if you come subscribe to us on YouTube, we would really appreciate it. It would really help our numbers, and that'd be great. Thank you so much. But, Dad, should we get into this game, I guess, since we've already kind of started touching on it?
Right. So we should get into so as we looked at, they lost 40-33, and they're now 4-8. I think tied for or they'd currently be in the 9th slot.
I think
in
8th.
The draft.
I think I just looked it up. They would be 8th in the draft.
And they've lost 7 of their last 8 games.
Yeah.
It's not quite free fall because they grabbed a branch at some point on the way down, slow down their fall.
They held on just enough to beat the Cowboys, which, like, if you're going to pick a game.
It's the Cowboys were the cartoon branch sticking out of the cliff that they grabbed on the way down.
Here's the thing. If you're going to pick a game to win, though, and, like, you're going to lose the other 7, I'll take that one. Like, why not? I might as well.
Sure. And you might as well, if we're going to lose them all, let's stick it to the Vikings and the Cowboys by losing to the Eagles. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll take whatever silver linings we can get. We try and stay positive here on the podcast, but before
Do we?
No, we don't. I was a total lie. But before we get into the actual breakdown of the game, let's just first talk about the injury update, and the big one that everyone is talking about is Aaron Rodgers. Unfortunately, on top of his broken thumb, which we talked about last podcast, he now has an oblique and rib injury that caused him to leave this game at the start of the fourth quarter. He tried to play through it for a little bit and just said that it was hard for him to turn and hard for him to breathe. He had initially feared, he said, that he had a punctured lung, but looks like that at least was avoided. Went into the locker room for x-rays, but those were inconclusive, and he was supposed to get an MRI today, but we didn't really hear any update on that, unfortunately, which is part of the reason we wanted to do the podcast today.
Yeah.
But we didn't get any news on that. But no punctured lung.
His x-ray was inconclusive, so they thought maybe it's a rib injury, is it an oblique muscle injury? But you can tell when he's throwing, he's like wincing, he's having trouble turning.
Wincing even more than usual. He already winces after every throw.
Yes, so now it's like not just the thumb, but the ribs. And I think it happened on that last sack he took.
Yeah,
at least
definitely.
That was the guess anyway.
And Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on this week. Both LaFleur and he have said that, well, Rodgers said that he wants to play as long as the Packers are mathematically still alive. And LaFleur said that if he's medically cleared to go, he will play against the Bears this coming weekend. Come follow us on Twitter for all the updates that will surely be coming about Rodgers going into this game against the Bears, and we'll be doing a pregame on Thursday if you want to come listen to that as well. But for now, that's kind of all we have on Rodgers, but that is the big one to watch. Beyond that,
mathematically, they're at like 3% right now, so it's not zero.
A generous 3% per ESPN.
Right, depends. I've seen as low as 1% in some, I think, but 3% in others.
Yes, but
somewhere between 1% and 3%.
Beyond that, unfortunately, we also had a few other injuries. Darnell Savage did have to leave the game, but
he only played one play.
Yes, he was actually benched before this play even happened. He had been moved to a nickel-only role as opposed to his usual starting safety spot.
Might have even been dime. I think he came in as the dime, not even nickel.
Okay.
Because he was behind both Ford and Nixon, I believe. And then he came in on that 3rd and long.
Yeah.
The Eagles' first 3rd and long, and caught his ankle in the turf, foot in the turf, and turned his ankle as he tried to change direction and stop Hurts.
Yes, but we did hear today from Rob Domofsky on Twitter that the X-rays for him were clean, and they're treating it as a sprain and not season-ending, so at least that's good for Savage. And then beyond that, A.J. Dillon did leave the game late, but he did come back in, so probably see him on the injury report today. It wasn't clear with what it was, but the fact that he came back in at least gives some hope there. I heard
people speculating it's some kind of like, you saw the play that he limped off on. It was the one where he did a full, like almost 360, planted on one foot as he's breaking a tackle, and then keeps going there in the
karate
quarter.
Kick play.
Yeah, and I was afraid he had like spun his knee, but he kept running after that spin too. So did he get hit in the quad or the thigh or something?
Yeah, but we're not doctors. Anyway, we don't need to speculate on injury.
He was back in the game later. So
exactly. Let's keep moving on. It's most likely okay. Fingers crossed, of course, knock on wood. But we got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Dad, let's start with the offense.
Yeah. Did you have a gut check?
I did. We talked about my gut check. The offense was good. The defense was terrible. They're out now officially. That was my gut check. They were already kind of out in my eyes, but they showed a lot in this game that was very encouraging. Was my gut check. I think this game. I thought this game would be worse. It's on the road against the best record, like team with the best record in the NFL. Like could have been much worse. And they went down early, 13-0, and didn't give up, which was nice at least. It would have been, I think, very
those first
easy.
3 possessions, like everything went wrong. It's like,
yes.
March down for touchdown, drop the kickoff in the end zone and get a short return, turnover, immediate score. It's like, oh man, this is just not falling apart, has already fallen apart.
Yes, it would have been really easy for them, down 13 on the road, bad record against a good team, to just fold up shop and go home and just call it a season. But they didn't.
They took a lead. They were that was good. That was some good football they played there for a stretch.
Yeah. But let's talk, since we're talking about good football, let's talk about the offense first. Why not?
Sure.
This was the good side of the football. It often alternates for the Packers, it seems. Yes. We were joking before the pod. Has anyone seen the offense and defense in the same room before? Because we've never seen them in the same place this year.
You can't get them both at the same game, so
it's
maybe
wild.
They're really the same person.
They alternate having good games. Like, they just can't.
So which one is Bruce Wayne and which one is Batman?
I think they alternate. They alternate which is which. Today, the offense was certainly Batman. Let's talk about it. Let's start with the bad, because it's honestly, I don't have that much bad for them. There was a lot of good on the offense today. For me, the only bad things were obviously Rodgers' injury, and then third down offense. They were only 1 of 7 on third down, which is really bad. 0 of 5 with Rodgers in. And then the 2 picks. And then the 2 picks Rodgers threw were bad. And maybe if he didn't throw them, they have a chance to win this game. Who knows? But those are my only negatives. Just the third down offense. That's all. Just the situational offense. But no, I think for the most part, great offensive day. Did you have any negatives you want to throw in before we talk about?
I had some negatives, and then we could talk about what we were looking for as well. Because some of the things that was what we wanted to see in the offense actually, I think, turned out to be mostly positive. The bad things, they had some trouble handling Fletcher Cox in particular, and stunts and other pass rush combinations in general. Twice, Nyman got beat as he collided with DeGuara on one play and Jones on another as they're trying to figure out the block as the pass rushers are switching in. That so that was there's a little bit of difficulty in the O line, though generally I would say the a lot of the O line was better than was pretty good. That interception, that second interception in particular, was not that play was a mess. It was either like a terrible read by Rodgers, where he just never saw Blankenship there at all, or Davis ran the route the wrong way or ran the wrong route, so that the safety ended up in front of him. And then we're still not getting that much from the tight ends.
Yeah, the tight end position is barren right now.
We had like 3 receptions by Tunyon and not a target for any other tight end. No, the one target.
No, one for Davis.
Target for the interception for Davis.
I was going to say, how could you forget? We were just talking about it. It went so well. How could you forget it?
It was a target for Blankenship.
Yeah, man. The first pick wasn't that bad. I mean, deflected ball.
He's scrambling, and he's been and Lazard throws his hand up, and so he throws it's a little bit behind him, gets deflected, pops way up in the air, and the only person who's close to it enough to get it is an Eagle. Nobody can run over and even knock it down.
Just one of those plays.
There were a couple things that we're looking for in our pregame, and I had a couple things on offense. I think yours were almost all on defense.
Mine were all defense, yes.
Except for
yours went well.
Run.
Mine did not.
So I wanted them to run the ball until Philly proved that the changes they made in the roster was Sue and Joseph could stop the and especially wanted to go to the left side where they're graded poorly. And overall, I think the Packers, they got 106 rushing yards. They could have probably used some more run plays. There are a couple of plays where they could 2 sacks in a round of 3, I think, one of the possessions. And then for the Eagles' pass defense, the coverage, what I found was weak in the short middle field. I wanted them to pass to the tight ends and running backs more, and they had 9 receptions combined from the running backs and tight ends. So I actually think they did a couple of those things that I was hoping they would do. And the offense did pretty well. So obviously, you should be listening to me more.
Yes, of course. I think there's a clearly causation here. For me, the thing I wanted to see going into the pregame was sticking with the run. I thought they did fine with it. 28 dropbacks to 21 carries isn't too bad considering the script at the end of the game where they had to pass. I'm totally fine with the amount of running they did, given that I wanted to see more running.
They didn't abandon it.
I was fine with it. Yeah. But taking that and going into the good things we saw on the offense, I'm going to kick us off. I think this is arguably the best the offense has looked all season, especially when you consider the level of competition. I'm just going to go down the things I had as positives. Offensive line, I actually thought was pretty good today. I know they gave up 3 sacks and 5 hits, but they ran the ball pretty well. And individually, all the linemen per PFF at least graded out pretty well. No PFF grades aren't perfect, but just something as a data point. Josh Myers did have the lowest of them, which kind of tracks with the eye test as well. I thought Bakhtiari, once again, when he's on the field, he's awesome.
He did get beat on one play by Sue.
Okay.
So he came around the side. And then there's but they probably got digged in some of the grading because of the holding penalty called on Jenkins because he just blocked so well he buried the defensive lineman.
Yeah, that was one of the most egregious calls. That was a pancake of pancakes, and he was bullying him, and they felt bad. They felt bad for him. I mean, they felt bad for Fletcher Cox. He usually doesn't get sat down on his ass like that. Was it Fletcher Cox
that
I'm pretty sure it was 91.
I didn't see who it was that got pancaked there, but yeah, it was
he got sat down on his ass by Elton, and they were like, "Oh no, that can't have happened. That must have been illegal." Exactly. But yeah, I thought the O-line was at least starkly better than last week. I mean, night and day from last week, especially along the interior, with, I would say, a similar level of challenge along the interior when you consider the level of player for each team. Probably no one quite as good as Simmons, but better depth, I would say, along the interior D-line for the Eagles than the Titans. Beyond that, Christian Watson continues his late his late bid for Rookie of the Year, we might have something to root for down the stretch for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Probably not, but we can hope. He's going crazy. I mean, 4 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown, including a massive 63-yard touchdown. The massive 63-yard touchdown.
That was a beautiful speed run.
Yeah, that made it from Jordan Love to him. Maybe a little glimpse of the future there. That made it a 1-score game late in the game. He just moves at a different speed than anyone on the field. And some fun stuff from Next Gen Stats to quantify that so that it doesn't sound like I'm just pulling that out of my you-know-what. Per Next Gen Stats, Christian Watson reached a top speed of 20.97 miles per hour on that 63-yard touchdown, which is the fastest speed by any Packers ball carrier on a play from scrimmage this season. Watson has reached 20 miles an hour on 12 plays from scrimmage this season, trailing only Tyreek Hill, who has 18. But keep in mind, Tyreek Hill's played over twice as many snaps as Christian Watson. Like, it's just different. The speed is different. The offense is different when they have that kind of speed. We saw with MVS last year, and it's even more so with him this year. I mean, he can take it all the way on any given play.
He's got more wiggle to go with his speed than MVS did.
Yes, he can turn, is what you mean. He has the ability to turn. But yeah, he looks like a player.
Drag racers that just goes in a straight line.
Exactly. He looks like a player out there. He now leads the NFC North in receiving touchdowns. Fun fact. If you want to take that 10 in your Vikings, Bears, or Lions.
He's like 7th in the league in receiving touchdowns, despite all the missed time.
6 touchdowns in 3 games. I mean, it's crazy.
And and he's first in touchdowns over the last 3 games.
Yeah, I had him. Did you have anything else for him? Well, I see you had him as a positive as well.
I mean, that was not just the touchdown play. You know, that the other catches were actually impactful. He caught that. He had the catch on 4th down while he's getting drilled by Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who actually hurt himself hitting Watson so hard. And he led the team in targets.
Yeah, 6 targets for the game, 4 catches, 100 yards. Great game. He is turning into a player right before our eyes.
Yeah, and he's a player that, you know, people are trusting in high leverage situations.
Yes, big time. Beyond that, I thought the running game was really solid. Is a bounce back game for A.J. Dillon after what's been a honestly very rough season for him. I mean, a really down year for him. But per ESPN, 8 carries for 64 yards and a touchdown, along with 3 catches for 24 yards. If you want some reference points for the season, that's his 3rd highest rushing yards on the season, his highest yards per carry for the season, his 2nd highest receiving yards for the season. He had a 20-yard carry, which is the 2nd longest run he's had this season. And this was actually his first touchdown since week 1.
I didn't realize his first touchdown since week 1.
Yeah, it's only his 2nd touchdown on the year and his first one since week 1. Per Pro Football Reference, he only played 43% of snaps. For reference, Jones played 71%. So still not even getting a really high snap load, but just did a lot more with it in this game. And I thought he looked really good. This is the best I think
more
he's
explosive.
Looked.
Yeah, he's the most yards from scrimmage since week 1 and the most receiving yards since week 1. I mean, I had those.
Yep.
That you know, they really they did the almost the alternating possession thing. They rode him most of that possession, I think, for where he had his rushing touchdown. They did bring Jones in a little bit, I think, in the play at the end, but they basically used him, and he was able to get more yards, get more space. The touchdown run, he was able to carry the defender across the goal line.
Yeah, I don't know what's been up with him this year, but this is a lot more like the player we saw last year and at the tail end of his rookie year than the player we had been seeing this year. Beyond that, for positives, Sammy Watkins is being phased out of the offense. I have that as a positive. He had 4 snaps. I'm going to take a quote from a lot of people. That's 4 too many. He's just a no-show. Like, he's just out there, like he's running around. I don't know. And then, do you have any more positives? Because I want to just save a little bit of Jordan Love talk, because that's my last positive is Jordan Love, and I figure we should kind of just take a little time to really talk about him after you hit any other positives.
So I could talk about some other things. So I already mentioned what I had about Dillon and Watson that you mentioned. I did say already also this is the highest scoring game of the year for the offense, and that they were able to bounce back after a bad start. I also want to mention I saw a good job by multiple offensive linemen getting to the second level on run plays.
Hmm.
And I thought this may be one of their best run blocking games of the year. They've had a lot of games where their pass blocking has outgraded their run blocking. But I felt as a unit, their run blocking was really good in this game. Getting down, there's a play, even the commentators talk about how they had three offensive linemen going down the left side,
Hmm.
leading, I think it was Jones on a play. And they were just doing a really good job of getting level and finding targets to block. I thought it was one of their better games in that regard.
Definitely. Yeah, like I said, I know that numbers aren't great for the offensive line in this game in terms of like pressures allowed, hits allowed, etc. But eye test wise, I thought they were really nice last night.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Jordan Love?
Sure. You want to? I have just a few things, or maybe a lot of things are going to be overlapping.
Yeah, I
But
just want to lead this off with Jordan. So Jordan Love came in with about almost 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, down 14. So all of this is with the caveat, very small sample size. And they were down 14 and then 7, or 14 and then 10. And so it was against a lot of softer zones for the Eagles. But 6 of 9 for 113 yards and a touchdown with some really impressive throws. And I actually thought his most impressive throw was an incompletion. He threw that the cover 2 hole shot down the right sideline to Aaron Jones on his back shoulder, and Jones just dropped it. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not trying to take a shot at Jones, but just to illustrate that he was throwing some dots out there. He had the touchdown throw to Watson, although that was mostly Watson, but the ball looked nice. It was a play, hit the play action, hit his back foot, didn't hitch it all, just threw the strike right down the middle, zipped. Ball had nice zip off his hands. I'm not like obviously a quarterback guru, but he looked good out there. He had one throw to Watson while rolling out where Watson was in the end zone that I think was like his only real miss of the evening. Could have just put a little more on it, and I think Watson was open and he would have had a touchdown. Kind of threw it a little short.
Just threw it to Lazard.
That was the one where Lazard was open, huh?
That was the scramble drill, and Lazard starts to break.
Here's the thing.
He's got his defender beat. If he just lobs it up to Lazard, Lazard walks into the end zone.
But I don't know if Lazard walks into the end zone. If I've seen the stills that I'm thinking of, I think it would have been a first down, right? Or was he?
He was.
You think
he was
would have walked in?
behind the defender, and the nearest defender was the guy who was covering Watson. I think he would have run in there pretty handily to get into the end zone based on his momentum already starting to leave the defender behind on the scramble drill. If he just lofts it in and goes for Lazard instead of, I think, the more difficult throw to Watson, I think that's a touchdown.
See, I don't even know if it was. I mean, all throws are difficult at that level, but I don't know if it was a particularly difficult throw because he's rolling out to his right and he just needs to put
take some
a
touch,
little more.
He'd have to lob it in there and have
no
just
for
the right
for Watson.
pace
I mean,
on it.
For Watson, I think it just need to be a few feet higher, and it's just right there in Watson's arms for a touchdown. He's running away from his guy, but I don't mind going for the end zone there. You're down 10. You can't let the clock run at all. But yeah, I think all things considered, really good outing for him. Probably the best he's looked in his career. Wouldn't you say?
I had the same thing where I actually wrote that. I think specifically, looked better than any outing I've seen so far. I think not just this year. Better than any of his preseason.
No, that's what I said. Yeah, better than any outing in his career.
Anything we've seen. Yeah, in his career.
Yes.
He really looked in sync with the offense, for the most part, in terms of going progressions and boom, back foot, throw.
Rhythm.
He's like, back foot, it's time to throw now, find the receiver, and hit it.
I did think he stared down
the open receivers.
I think he stared down receivers a few times, like the out route to Lazard. I think he stared him down a little bit, and Slay's like 20 yards back.
I mean that was when we got our first third down conversion, and there's a big cushion there that makes it easy for Lazard to turn and get past the sticks.
Yes, but
he also got scores on both of the drives that he led. The touchdown, the first, the second one could have easily been a touchdown if they had just called the DPI, where that throw to Cobb was maybe a little bit behind him, but the defensive back is early. Yeah,
that's true. I agree. But overall, just a really solid showing from him, and enough
and I also felt like not only the ball had more velocity.
He had some zip on it.
I've seen him at other times. He had more zip than we've seen him throw it, and quicker decision and more zip than we've seen it. So far
for sure.
him.
Yes, especially on the throw to Watson. The one thrown back across his body to Cobb, like you said, I thought it was a really nice throw. But it is what it is. It would have been a really tough comeback. I would have liked to see him get the ball.
I wanted
down 7.
so much, just one more possession there. If they could just have forced the punt on that, last or second to last third down, whatever it was, so that they could have had a chance to tie it up. I would have, even if he didn't make it, I wanted to see what happened.
Yeah, I just wanted him to have a chance, but unfortunately didn't quite get the chance to tie it. It is what it is. But in terms of positives, in terms of the offense, I think that's kind of all we had. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, or should we move on to the not so fun part, is the defense?
I think defense that's was so all bad today. Had on the offense. Right. The fact that the defense was not able to get the ball back for him from one last drive was totally on brand for this game.
Yes, 100%. I would have loved, because it was almost 15 years to the day that Rodgers came in for Favre versus Dallas.
Off
it
by
was
2 days.
2 days off, yes. And that would have been just so poetic. I mean,
so
I don't think
ready for another 15 years of star quarterback play?
I know I saw a lot of memes on Twitter of some scared NFC North fans. I mean, obviously, I like we said, caveat, small sample size and softer coverages than they'd been seeing throughout the game, but
this is the first time I've seen Love and could say he could be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, that's how I actually kind of felt like in the preseason. I was like, oh, that's not bad. Like, you could start somewhere. But today I was like, oh, you might be able to start for us next year. Like, let's see what happens with this. But we're going to talk about that at the end of this podcast when we talk about what is going to go on with the Packers going forward. But let's loop back to that. Let's talk about the defense. Things we wanted to see from the defense. Things I wanted to see from the defense.
Right. You had a list of things you wanted to see from the defense, and I had stuck mine all in the offense.
Yes. So the things,
did you get did you get what you wanted to see?
The things I wanted for Christmas? No. Here are the things that I wanted to see on defense going into the pregame.
Packers gave you a bag of coal, huh?
The first, I got a rock. The first one was, don't let Jalen Hurts scramble.
Well, you knew what to pick anyway.
I did, I suppose. He did end up running for 157 yards, though, which was just the 5th time a quarterback has run for that many yards in the Super Bowl era. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as we go. So no check there. I wanted them to make the Eagles throw. The Eagles ran for over 300 yards, so
and
no.
They threw for like 170 or something.
And then I wanted them to tackle. And this was maybe the worst display of tackling since last week. Actually, no, it's much worse than last week. Matt LaFleur had them at 15 plus missed tackles, 20 or something like that.
But I think one of the sites listed them at
PFF
15.
had them at 16 missed tackles.
16.
We're going to talk about the missed tackles, but 0 for 3, folks. They did not hit a single. They actually did the exact opposite of all of the things I wanted them to do.
Trifecta.
And obviously, it's very easy for me to say these are the things I want them to do without actually presenting a strategy. But I mean, they didn't present a strategy either. I
want them to win all 17 games.
Exactly.
What I'd like to see this week is to outscore their opponent by 50 points.
We correctly identified what the problem areas were going in. And I guess both me and the Packers did not have any answers for how to actually stop it because it was really bad. There's so much bad that I just want to get the good out of the way first. Did you have anything good for the defense or?
Let's get to my notes. I had a few things. The new pickup, Hollins.
Hollins looked good. Looked good.
He had a nice game. He had set the edge against the run nicely on a play. He got the sack, chased down.
He'd
Hurts
been there
play.
2 days, and he's already edged 3. Comfortably edged 3 with Gary.
You know why
obviously.
He could make a tackle and set the edge against the run? Because he's only been there for 2 days.
He hasn't learned all of the bad habits that this team has. He hasn't learned, we don't do that here.
You're supposed to try to grab the man's flag at his hip, and that's all you do.
But
isn't he down now?
But he really was good. he looked very good.
I think he's promising. It's like I'm looking at it, it's like maybe they need to keep this guy next year.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna see because obviously limited snaps.
They'll field a team of 22 next year.
The only problem with Hollins, you know the problem with Hollins? Why is he wearing 47? What a terrible number for an edge rusher. What a god awful number for anyone.
Is he an H-back?
That's a long snapper number. That is a straight up long snapper number. I don't understand why. Who gave him that number? That's organizational malpractice to line him up out there with 47. Yuck. For me, some good things.
So I had a couple more things. I thought.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Ford got the start over Savage.
Yeah, he was really bad last week, but he was better this week.
He had a pretty good game, and PFF gave him the top grade for our defensive players, which I suppose is damning with faint praise.
Yeah, I was going to say, real high bar there.
And they had a couple of the first two short yardage plays where they got the stop on 3rd and 1 and then 4th and 1 was good, especially by Enigbare or Enagbar, however you're supposed to. I have to check.
Yeah, I guess he pronounced it differently during the intros in this past game.
I'd have to go back and check. I've been pronouncing it Enigbare, but I think he said Enagbar.
Yeah, until I check it, I'm gonna check it after this, and I'm gonna say Enigbare for now, but I'm gonna check it after this. I know he also doesn't like to go by Kingsley; he likes to go by JJ.
Yeah, JJ
was the other
right.
thing. Yes.
They should just call
I thought JJ. He looked really good. He led the team in pressures.
And he
pressures.
Basically was important for both of those stops. Both of those stops, I think, on 3rd and 4th down to get the turnover on downs, which helped get them back in the game.
He's a gamer. He's a gamer. He can play. And then
so those are the good things that I had. Do you have any good things?
I was just Hollins and Enigbare were the two, and that's it. The rest were pretty stinky. Should we talk about the bad things?
Sure. You want to go first? Or should I go first?
I'll go first. All right. Let me just
crack your knuckles, loosen up your back.
Yeah, I'm about to put in a clinic right here, talking about all the negatives on this defense. I was born for these moments. Let me just, Okay. Quarterback run defense. How many times are we going to let them get away with this?
Right, make sure you read those all caps out.
Yes, because like I said, Jalen Hurts had 157 rushing yards, which is the 5th most by a quarterback in the Super Bowl era. Of those 5, 2 have come against the Packers, with the other one, of course, being Colin Kaepernick's famous playoff game where he ran for $180 and set the quarterback record. It's like it's ingrained in the Packers' DNA that they cannot stop a rushing quarterback. We talked about this going in, that they couldn't stop Heineke last year, they couldn't stop Huntley last year, they couldn't stop Josh Allen this year, they couldn't stop Daniel Jones this year, and lo and behold, when you put a guy who's even better at running out there, it goes even worse. I mean, he had 102 rushing yards in the first quarter.
When he finished with 157, it's like, they really cleaned up their act. I
was like, they really made some adjustments, holding him to 157.
It could have been 400.
He was on pace for 408 rushing yards after the first quarter. Like how many times are we going to let this happen? I mean, did you have any other fun stats about the quarterback rushing, or should I go on?
I have a little bit, which is kind of related to that.
Because I have some stuff about the rushing defense in general. Because that wasn't any better.
So what happened was covering the QB runs was not just bad, but an epic fail. He became the first player in a regular season game to since at least 1950, and I think it's all time, with 150 plus yards passing and 150 plus rushing and multiple passing touchdowns. And of course, the only other person who's done that is, as you mentioned, Kaepernick against Green Bay in the playoffs.
Amazing. It's like deja vu all over again.
They failed to contain the edge on multiple occasions. And it looked like, at least in the first long run, on that 3rd and long on their first possession, that they actually tried to have Quay Walker as a spy. He just didn't even, I don't think he even made contact.
Here's the thing. They had all these missed tackles. There's probably a dozen more where they didn't even touch the guy because they just took a bad angle because he's just running past him.
Walker gets beat at the line as he sells too hard to his right, and then he beats Savage, who missed a tackle. He beats Amos, who I think gets juked and doesn't get a hand on him. And then he goes an extra, I don't know, I forget how many yards of that would before he finally gets run out of bounds.
I mean,
and they also, in addition to those scrambles, looked like they were like totally unprepared for the design QB runs.
Yes,
so they had a few
ran quarterback draws for free yards. It was absolutely free real estate.
And he's got like, I don't know how many yards wide open in front of him at the start of the design run. Like it didn't cross their mind to be ready for it.
They parted the Red Sea like they forgot to trot a D lineman out there. Like there was just no one at the nose. Like he grabbed it, looked up. It's like, oh, they all have their backs turned to me. I'm going. I'm gone. Like he converted their first 3 third downs were all Jalen Hurts rushes. Their first 3 third downs. Like I was going over them, and because we'll talk about the third down defense because that was awful. Should we just talk about the third down defense? Because let's come back to the third down defense because it was bad. But I want to talk about the rushing more because we're already talking about the quarterback rushing. Let's talk about the rushing defense as a whole. Unless you have anything more on Hurts.
We got 363 yards to talk about.
Exactly. I got 363 reasons why we lost this game. I mean, this was the most rushing yards the Eagles have had in a game since 1948. Like, this is insane. This is practically before you were even allowed to do the forward pass. Like 157 on 17 carries for Jalen Hurts, like we already said, 9.2 a carry. And then Miles Sanders tacks in 143 on 21 carries, 6.8 a carry. And then Gainwell and Scott chip in 11 carries for 63 yards. You might as well jump offside every play you give up less yards. Like, what are we doing? They move it down the field slower at that point because they just got the absolute, and that, just to cite that, the most rushing yards to the Eagles since 1948, that's per Packers Wire. But man, they did not know the assignment. They did not realize that this was their entire offense was just going to be running it down their throat.
Yep.
That, or they're just not good enough to stop it. It might be both.
So the Eagles, they got, you know how much they averaged yards per pass? 4.6.
It was 7.4 yards per carry.
And it was 7.4 yards per rush.
I don't understand why they bothered passing. I don't get it. It didn't actually make any sense to me. They were having such success. They ran it on 3rd and 8 once, I think, and picked it up like a designed running back run, like not a scramble. I mean, c'est la vie. I guess it just is what it is. How is the run defense? I mean, I get they're missing Campbell, but still, I mean, and obviously. What was it? Joe Barry today said, I mean, he pretty much said today that he didn't have a problem. He didn't see a problem with the defensive play calling. And maybe the defensive play calling is bad. I think it probably is because you don't give up 360 if there's anything going right, you don't give up 360. But it's hard to entirely say for sure if he's wrong because the tackling was so awful. I mean, they had 11 different players per PFF miss a tackle today. And that's just a missed tackle. That's not like a bad angle taken. Like, they probably had a dozen more of those. That's not a total. It's probably a total whiff. They count those. But, I mean, Quay Walker led the way with 4 missed tackles.
Yeah, honestly, that's a good question. How close do you have to get to the ball carrier to be considered a missed tackle?
I know, right? What does a tackle attempt count as? It's probably easier to define that than it is for the NFL to define a catch. I mean, buddy? They are spinning in circles trying to define that. Did you see some of these? We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about it off air. We got too much else to talk about. I mean, man, have you, like, the tackling was pitiful in this game. Like, it was really bad.
Oh, yeah, and you'd have I'm surprised that it's in, like, the teens.
It feels so much more. It feels like so much more.
There's some plays with like 3 or 4 missed tackles in a single play.
Yeah.
And Several. They ran, how many plays did they run? Was it 70?
They ran 73 plays to our, like, 43.
79 total plays.
Yeah. Goodness. There has to be at least 20 missed tackles. There's got to be. They're trying to tell me that we had a missed tackle on, like, we averaged less
one
than...
play out of 4?
Yeah, no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Here's the thing. Maybe 16 plays with missed tackles on them. Maybe. You can tell me that. But we definitely had multiple missed tackles per play several times in that game. And Quay, like I said, PFF had him as having the most. He's a rookie. It is what it is. Put on some strength in the offseason, I guess.
Unfortunately, because he was actually a good tackler. Was one of his strengths in college was tackling.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason they picked him.
Yeah.
He's got long arms. Just not wrapping anybody up. He did play really well in the Titans game, so up and downs of a rookie year.
So it's time for Barry to do like diving on air again to show him how to tackle.
They're out on Barry. Can we talk about that? The defense.
We'll get to that.
The defense has completely tuned him out. I think
it sure seems like
it looks like it. It's very visible. We'll talk about it when we talk about what's coming next for the Packers. Run defense bad, tackling bad. Third down defense allowed 8 of 15 on third down and 2 of 3 on fourth down. They allowed conversions of 3rd and 10 on a Hurts run. They allowed 13 yards on a 3rd and 14 that turned into a 4th down conversion. That's criminal.
That's been their specialty. They did it against the Titans too. Let's get 3rd and long and give them enough so that they'll go for it on 4th with an easy conversion of 1 yard.
And this was an issue under Pettin too. It's like they don't understand that every team is going to go for it on 4th and 1 at the opponent's 30. Every team, and we know you're not going to stop them on 4th and 1. Like you're not going to stop them. They're running for free yards, and especially the new meta of the quarterback sneak with people pushing them behind. NFL's got to do something about this because this is ridiculous. It's free yards. It's free 3 yards every time.
We got one stop.
We did get one stop by the grace of God.
Well, they did bobble the ball in one of those two.
Yes.
And then had to scoop it up.
But here's the thing: is
you see Kelsey trying to trap it against his thigh while he's
that should have been an illegal snap because he never actually.
They also
gave
had
it
a
to
false
Hurts.
start in that game.
Yeah, but
on that play, I think.
And three of their 8 third down conversions came on Hurts scrambles. So do with that as you will. And then my last negative, I thought the pass rush. I know they had 2 sacks, only had 3 quarterback hits. PFF had them with a decent number of pressures. I didn't really see it. I mean, I think they missed Gary so badly. Zach Cruz on Twitter had this stat that since losing Gary in Detroit, the Packers defense has allowed 443 yards a game and 31 points a game.
443 per game.
Right? Like, that's a video game Madden numbers. Like, those are absurd numbers. Just without one dude. Like, and yes, they lost Stokes in that game too, for those of you telling me that, but I think Gary was the straw that stirred the already not so great tasting drink. Like, they got nothing. They got no juice without him on the field at all.
He was their best defensive player this year by far.
You could take out the word defensive. He was their. Am I wrong?
I don't.
He was very easily their best player, I think, this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
except for Christian Watson.
No, I still think Gary, but Watson. No shade to Watson. He's having a really nice year. Did you have any other negatives besides the ones I listed? I'm done with my tirade. I'm tired. I'm ready for a nap.
Okay, well, you take your nap. I'll mention a few more things. I mean, basically, the D-line just got worked by the Eagles O-line, which is kind of what we knew. They're just getting blasted.
Yeah, we did highlight that pregame that was a mismatch, and it was a mismatch.
We weren't wrong. Kenny lost the battle to Kelsey. I think he has no positive impact plays, and he lets Sanders just run right through his tackle attempt on Sanders' first touchdown. Just had both arms on him, just slides off. Sanders runs it for the touchdown. Except for that first possession, or not, sorry, that the first short yardage where they got the stop at 4th down, they basically got blasted in all the other short yardage situations. The 2 touchdowns, I think they're both by Sanders. They're just getting pushed back into the end zone, like 4 yards deep in the end zone by the Eagles' offensive line. Everybody.
They look like they were.
It was a fail by every single person up there. There wasn't a single person who held their ground.
They look like they were 4 feet tall in a 6-foot pool. They look like they were fighting for their life out there on every single play, just flailing about.
Just bulldozed into the end zone for easy touchdowns on those and the first down, I think, on another short yardage play. The tackling at all levels was terrible. Um, those
It's
are the
so
main things I
crazy
had in
how
that.
it's so crazy how good at tackling they were last year, and
Yeah,
how awful at tackling. Like complete
yeah.
reversal in tackling. It's
And
crazy.
then there's all kinds of bad angles
Yes,
taken
yes.
by. Well, Savage only had one chance by Amos, by Walker. Um, they're kind of the biggest culprits. I think.
Hmm.
Oh, Razul had had an awful game,
I
as I
notice
recall.
you're
I didn't
saying a
go
lot of
back.
secondary members.
I didn't go back, and I meant to go back and look at him specifically. But I remember thinking during the game, "Oh man, he's having a bad game. He's getting beat out there." That touchdown by Quez Watkins
Watkins, yeah.
on him,
He's, he's too
and that was
fast for Rasul. It's not a good matchup for
yeah.
him.
Though yeah, but he had a rough game
Yeah.
um, this
Yeah.
week.
I mean, the whole secondary did. The whole team did. I mean, they just got that.
Nixon and Ford are like the best players on defense this week.
I
Guys they
mean,
picked up off of this, you know,
of the scrap heap. Yeah.
scrap heap for were their most consistent defensive contributors.
Yeah, and it's like they were getting 6 yards before contact. It felt like almost every play, and then no one was tackling at the second
And
level.
then another
Like,
dozen
yeah,
after contact.
it was just so easy. I don't even know why they bothered passing. Like, what was the
I
point?
mean, just think about. Remember that the Niners playoff game where
This didn't feel
they,
quite that bad.
except that was only like
Yeah, it was. I know
250
statistically this was
yards.
worse.
This is 360. This is another extra 100 yards.
I think some of it is it didn't feel as bad because it wasn't just all handed to the running back every time.
Because
It didn't feel quite
only,
as bad.
they only threw it 8 times, which the Eagles could have easily gotten away with.
Yes. I don't know why they didn't. They were just letting their guys get a little rest. You know. I don't know. They gotta. Hey, they have these big name receivers. They gotta feed them the ball. Keep them happy. It was.
Yeah, we got that. Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to shout out for Ford for ripping the ball out.
Yes, forced a fumble.
Forced fumble from AJ Brown that Quay picked up and ran back a long way.
Quay
So
ran out of gas.
He was after the play was over, man. That guy needed to go lay down.
Yeah, he was huffing and puffing down about the 20-yard line. He made another 10 yards. But yeah, they defense was really bad. It was really, really bad. Seems like they're like completely out on Joe Barry. Feels like the secondary in particular is really just like tuned out and like totally checked out. I feel like I saw tons of members of the secondary in this game, especially. Like the D line was bad. D line's got no talent. I mean, I don't know what's up with Kenny. I couldn't
They
tell you.
should have more talent, though.
The D line? Who?
Kenny's having a down year. It's like
Kenny's playing bad. And now we see what happens if Kenny's not carrying the entire D line by himself. There's nothing there.
And we had
all these other guys. Dean Lowry should be given 80% of the money he made in the NFL to Kenny Clark. Direct deposit tonight. I mean, Dean Lowry is a nothing burger.
We expected more from
Jerron
Reed
Reed's okay.
and Wyatt.
Jerron Reed's okay. I don't know. Wyatt's still barely playing. I mean, he played a little more this game, and he looked okay. He flashed a little bit. Slayton had a nice game, I thought. He had one nice tackle.
It was up and down. He also was in some of those plays where he got pushed back off the line on some of the short yardage.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a guy who occasionally will get upfield and get pushed back every other time than just the guy that's going to get pushed back every time.
He did make a couple of plays, but...
yeah, I mean, the defense was horrid. It was really, really awful. I mean, give up 40 points. Like,
yeah, 40 points is a lot of points.
40 points with like almost no resistance. They had a few stops, but it felt like more just the Eagles.
It was a long time
shooting
before there was a punt in this game.
Yeah. I mean, you give up 40 points, you give up 360 yards rushing. Like, it's not a good outing. It's bad. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I feel like the coaching is bad, the playing is bad, the fundamentals are awful. Like, I don't even know, where do you even start? Like, they've put so many resources into the defense.
They keep signing free agents and drafting high. They've been drafting like first and second round defensive players for a decade trying to
And
fix
it's
this thing.
still, what's the best defense they've had in that time? 2019? When they gave up 270 yards? I mean, obviously, like 2014 probably, and 2011. But since
if you go back that far.
Since 2014, when they've been making these investments on defense under like late stage Ted Thompson and Brian Gutekunst, is the best defense they've had 2019? Is it last year? Like, it's one of the two. It's probably last year. And it wasn't even that good. I don't know. 2019, arguably, but then you look and say, okay, but they can't stop the run at all, and they got 270 yards run down their throat. So, no. Statistically, it probably was the better one. But then, and then Tampa one, like, was good. The year they lost to Tampa, that is. It was good, but that's 2020. But it wasn't special. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what the fix is because they've it's not like they're neglecting it. Like,
yeah.
Maybe in an offensive football league, don't focus on defense, just focus on scoring points. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that, but I did just a little bit more from this game before we start talking about everything else. Big picture. So special teams. We didn't talk about special teams yet.
Yes, we can talk about special teams. It was okay.
We had another missed kick. I mean, another dropped kick return.
Yeah, that was bad.
The first one was like, oh, of course. But then after that, it was.
Wait, you mean missed kick as in?
We had a missed kick as in the missed extra point. Sorry, and then I jumped to two things at once. There's the missed extra point, of course, because we did, and a couple of snaps looked a little wonky, and then of course we also dropped a return as well.
How are there less than 32 people in the world that can long snap? I don't understand it.
But Nixon was, after that first return, was amazing.
Really nice. Yeah, 2 50-yard returns.
He was the only person this year with 2 50-yard kickoff returns per Matt Schneidman. And I think he also had a 40-yarder. So he was amazing.
You can't tell me that Nixon isn't a top 10 Packer, like in terms of performance this year. Like in terms of just straight up performance. You can't tell me he's not one of the...
He's been a good slot corner. And
he's been a good slot corner.
Finally given him returning. He's doing an amazing job.
The only good dude on special teams.
They also got a couple of touchbacks. They had 2 touchbacks on kickoffs this week. And
they didn't look pretty, but they made it to the end zone.
Yeah.
Those things were...
And even the returns, I think there was only like one past the 30. They had like where they only got to the 21, only got to 28, only got to 29.
Yeah.
It was a better job on the kickoff coverage and touchbacks than
Still
they had
not
been doing.
Quite up to the level of like what you hoped for when you like gave Bisaccia all that money, but wasn't the problem today. So I guess there's that.
No, it wasn't their turn.
It wasn't their turn. Next week they'll break our souls and we'll lose to the Bears. But anyway, let's wrap this up. Player of the game, I had Christian Watson. He was good. He was really good.
And I picked Keyshawn Nixon.
Yeah, like you said, 2 50-yard returns. Very reasonable pick. Like we said, this is going to be a bit of a longer episode because now I think it's time to talk about what comes next for the Packers. They're 4-8. Like we said, we got a 2% chance of making the playoffs. So, I mean, I called it when they lost to the Lions. So, there's that. Not to say I told you so. That's not what I meant. How for that to come off, but they do have a small chance. But I'm not holding my breath. We'll say. I think it's important to talk about what comes next for the Packers. This team has a lot of question marks for this offseason and next year. Let's talk about a few of those. The big one is what to do with this Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers situation. Rodgers says he wants to play until he's mathematically eliminated, and LaFleur said Rodgers will play this weekend against the Bears if medically cleared. Jordan Love, this is his 3rd year. They need to decide on his 5th-year option this offseason, and they've only seen him start 2 games and play in like 4. They need more data points on him. He's only started once, huh? No, yeah, once. He's only started 1 game.
He only
the Chiefs game. That's
started the Chiefs game, yeah.
And he's only appeared in 4 or 5.
About a half against the
Lions.
In
the Lions game.
Played almost a little less than a quarter here, and then he came in and like some mop-up duty in our week 1 blowouts.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
The Saints. And did he also come into the Vikings?
I
at the
think
end of
briefly,
this week?
yes. But anyway, they need to decide on his fifth year option this offseason. And they
Yeah,
need
it's
to.
a $20 million, I think, option for him.
Yeah. And keep in mind, while you're thinking about all this Jordan Love stuff, yes, he looked very good in this game. There's a lot of prevent defense, but he did look very good in this game. But if they decide to take the fifth year option with him, if he looks good, and they decide that they want to stick with him as the plan for the future, it brings up a lot of difficult decisions with Rodgers. Namely, these are some notes from Ken Ingalls on Twitter. He does some really great stuff with Packers cap and analyzing that, so you should all go give him a follow.
Yeah, and one of the things that Ken always says is, you can keep anybody, but you can't keep everybody.
Yes. So, some numbers on this Rodgers contract that they gave him this past offseason. If they decide to go the Love route going forward, if Rodgers retires or is traded this offseason, and don't ask about cut because he essentially mathematically cannot be cut based on how much money it would cost. If he retires or is traded this offseason, the Packers would have $40.3 million, or almost 20% of the cap, of dead money owed to Rodgers in 2023. Now, they can split it between 2023 and 2024 if that decision is made post June 1st, but the problem is then they would not be able to trade him for draft picks for this draft. If Rodgers plays next year and then they want to start Love in his fifth-year option year that they would then give him in this scenario, the Packers are left with $68.2 million. It actually goes up of dead money against the cap, which would be almost 33% of the cap. And it only gets higher from there each subsequent year. The way that they structured this contract is baffling to me. I don't understand it. I don't know what... Obviously, I don't know as much about Russ Ball, but I don't understand what they were thinking when they did this. He's essentially like kind of has them hostage a little bit. They pretty much already committed to him, essentially.
The contract, right, that they signed to say that, Rodgers like, okay, I want you to be financially committed where you cannot decide not to keep me.
Exactly. And it's almost to the point where they're going to be forced to trade Jordan Love, I think, is the only recourse they have.
One thing I would say about retirements is sometimes when players retire, they will renegotiate and tack on some void years or something to spread out the remaining cap hit. I think Drew Brees did this. I think other players have pulled this move to reduce the immediate cap hit.
Yes. And something about that cap hit in regards to trading is if he is traded, the other team cannot take on this $40 million of dead cap. This has already been paid to Rodgers. It's just going to hit them in 2023. So there's no amount of money that the other team can take on. This is going
for that part anyway.
Part.
I don't know what happens with the option. He's got a big option that is due in March of 2023 that hits the cap, and I don't know what the rules are. I mean, based on the way that people are reporting the cap, if he's traded or cut,
seems guaranteed.
Sounds like,
or like a likely to convey,
or that the
option.
Packers are on the hook for that, and that's another thing that could be transferred to the another team.
But pretty much, the more I look at it, at least, and the more I think about it, I think it's setting them up for they're going to have to trade Jordan Love because the money just doesn't necessarily work out to move Rodgers, because pretty much they would have to move Rodgers this year, this offseason. They can't do it next offseason. It's just not possible. What's your or?
They keep Rodgers and he rides the bench and he's on the bench.
Why would he want to do that? Like,
it's just set up that way.
I mean, they can't allocate that much money to quarterback.
I'm just throwing crazy.
They can't put a competitive roster out there and allocate that much money to the quarterback position. Just can't do it. I think they're going to have to trade Love.
I think it's going to be difficult to field a competitive team,
no matter what,
regardless.
Yes, I agree.
So
they already aren't. They already are not fielding a competitive team. So
in some ways, okay, we're going to pay $80 million to the quarterback position this year, and we are going to suck ass.
Yeah. really
then,
suck for 2 years.
And then keep the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's
if
looking really tough.
If they think Love is the future.
And there's so many cap problems. I think the first thing that obviously we want to see with Love is I think he's got to start at least 2 games this year. And I think that in order to get like a good feel, you need to see at least 2 full games worth to know what he is. You have no idea what he is. Like, he played 1 game against the Chiefs and he was pretty bad, but I'd say the game plan was awful. In that, I mean, that's one of the worst games of O-line play I've ever seen.
To prepare, and they just blitz living crap out of them, and they didn't call a game plan.
Steve Spagnuolo absolutely pulled out every blitz he had. It was terrible. Yeah. So I don't even know. Like, you need to see more from him. Like, they need to play him, and I know Rodgers is going to want to play, and I respect that. And I respect that they owe him that in some ways. But
even he left the door open for after they're mathematically eliminated, which could happen during their bye.
That's true. So we might see a whole lot of Love post-bye.
This is what I've got. I've got like 4 games for bye. 4 games for Love after the bye, where even if the Packers beat the Bears next week, there's a very good chance that they're mathematically eliminated by the time they come out of the bye with 4 games left. And then you say, okay, Rodgers, time for your thumb surgery. Go on IR.
And I hate to say it, but that might be the best case scenario is they get eliminated during their bye. Like, that's actually, I don't even hate to say it, actually. That is the best case scenario, is they get eliminated during their bye. We get 4 games of Jordan Love, and we know if he's good or not, essentially. Maybe got to play a little spoiler to some other NFC North teams. Who knows? But that's kind of where the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers stuff sits in terms of going forward. It's the biggest thing. It's the most important thing. There's going to be a million articles written about it. We're definitely going to talk about it, especially during the bye week. Come tune in, of course, as always. Did you have anything else on that, or should we talk about the other problems that they're going to have to tackle in the offseason? Because there's more. But wait, there's more.
Right. I mean, part of it is with Rodgers' cap. And if they move on from Rodgers, then they have to move on from a bunch of other players.
Yes, and even if they don't move on from Rodgers, they're going to have to move on from a bunch of players. I mean, this is the price of going all in, and why they honestly should have gone even further all in, because you're already having to pay the piper. Aaron Jones next year is supposed to make $20 million. That's not happening with the Packers. They can't afford to pay that.
And if they move on from Jones, or
he's still void years, right?
If they just straight move on from him, no, he's not in void years. It would save about, I had this up like $8 million in the cap, I think. But so I suspect he may still play for the Packers next year, but he is not playing for the Packers on $20 million.
No, and then beyond that, while you look that up,
renegotiate his contract to get him back, but playing for less.
It's so tough. And then Adrian Amos is a free agent. He's almost certainly going to be gone. They're not going to be able to afford to bring him back.
Yeah,
Preston Smith
he's on a void year. He's not actually not a but he's still going to be on the cap.
Yeah,
he's got a void year
exactly, because they have void years. Preston Smith, I think they're going to have to find a way to get off that contract because they're just not going to be able to afford to pay it. And then, can they afford to re-sign Elton Jenkins? I don't see how. Like, maybe if they super backload it, they can afford to do it, but he's going to want tackle money. And can he play tackle? Do we know? He didn't look good at tackle this year. Are you going to pay a left guard Quentin Nelson money with how bad the rest of the roster is? Can you afford to pay a guard that much money? I don't see how you can reasonably do that.
Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they do a sign and trade.
Maybe they might have to, which is really sucks because I think Elton's a really good player. I think
Elton's been Gutekunst's
easily best pick, easily
draft
by
pick.
So much. And the thing is, it's just so murky because if he had looked good at tackle, it's like, okay, we'll pay him tackle money. He'll play tackle for us the rest of his career. And Bob's your uncle, I guess, for lack of a better word. But he's playing left guard for them now, and they don't have a good enough team to be paying that much for a left guard. Like, maybe if they had a quarterback on a rookie contract, but they don't, they won't. Even if they do, they'll still be paying the dead money on Rodgers.
They could backload him until they have
I don't know.
quarterback on a rookie contract.
There's so many gymnastics
it really
to be
starts
done.
to kick in 3 or 4 years down the road on a 5-year contract where they
But
no
like we
longer are
said,
paying.
we're going to talk about all this cap stuff. Do you have anything more? Should we talk about coaching and defense?
Um, there was, yeah, what else we had about, yeah, we do have a list of like players, free agent retentions, players that could be on cheap contract. Could we bring them back? Like Nyman, and, who's
Yeah.
just going to be a restricted free agent.
Nyman's
And
probably going to need a first round tender
yeah, which
because
is $6 million, because
yeah,
starting tackle, above average starting tackle is easily worth that much money.
definitely.
Lots of teams would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Jenkins and Ford and Nixon, and
Yeah, I mean they got a lot of decisions to make with that, and we're going to talk about it. I think we should move on. We're getting a little long on time. But the next thing they got to decide is who is going to be the next defensive coordinator, because I think it sure as hell can't be Joe Barry next year. If they trot out Joe Barry as the defensive coordinator next year,
there'll be a riot. There'll be
I don't know what we'll do.
torches and pitchforks in the street. I think they bring Barry back next year.
You go on Twitter, obviously you'll see every Packers fan is out on Joe Barry. You look at the field, almost every Packers defender is out on Joe Barry. Like you're watching, to me at least, it looks like the secondary especially has totally started phoning it in and is completely out on Barry and his style of coaching, his play call. I don't know if it's play calling, coaching, the scheme that they're out on, but it seems like they're out. It doesn't feel like maximal effort is being given, especially by members of the secondary. Just the defense is bad. I mean, it's not just that. The defense is bad, and I think he's lost like the faith of the locker room.
Yeah,
and so I don't see how you can bring him back.
This is what I have. Is like, despite all of the remarks by LaFleur, and LaFleur is a king of coach speak, where
Yes,
which is why he almost never has a negative thing to say, which is why it was kind of shocking when Kyler Hill got
roasted.
let go.
Yeah,
but it's not just sort of the coaching in the moment. It's like, and the players do need to play better, but it's, all this talk about, well, it's not just the coaching, players don't rock, and this idea that they don't want to, make changes in the middle of the season. Why? What are you protecting the rest of the season for? And actually, look at the Lions. The Lions cut their defensive coordinator, and they immediately got better.
Yep, 100% change immediately.
It's like last year, you didn't want to move on from the
Mo Drayton, the special teams
coordinator, because you didn't want to like rock the boat in the middle of the season. No, when they're clearly underperforming and tanking the rest of your team, you got to rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
So I don't see.
And that was the big mistake last year, because last year was their best shot. They didn't do it.
Decided they didn't. They thought it'd be too disruptive.
Yep.
It's more disruptive to suck.
Yes. It's the thing is, it's just, yeah. And the defense is bad, and it's so much. Like, yes, the players have been bad. It's a whole lot harder to replace an entire 11 than it is to just change the coach and see if it gets better. Like,
so I think
here's the question:
who's going to take it over? But
Jim Leonard is free. This is what I was going to say. Jim Leonard, the Badgers just hired Luke Fickell out of Cincinnati. Very exciting hire. But
Leonard is who they wanted when they hired
exactly.
Barry.
They offered him the job, and he declined because it was very much rumored that he thought he would be the next head coach of Wisconsin, and now he's not. So
yeah, but
make
for
that
somebody
call.
who wants to be like the long-term defensive coordinator, it's rough to come in at the end of a bad year.
This is true. I mean, the bar is the floor in some ways.
Yeah, and so that's why I feel like we have seen what Joe Barry could do.
We saw what Joe Barry could do before they hired him.
We didn't need. The regression we got, like regression of individual players all across the defense. They're all getting worse under him.
He was the defensive coordinator of the first team to go 0-16. What were we thinking?
Yep, I mean he was.
Sorry, go ahead.
He's never had a good defense.
Never.
He's never been in charge of a top defense. Lack of preparation. Lack of player improvement, lack of proper instruction of how to communicate and where they're supposed to be on defense. all this is like more than the scheme and game planning. People talk about, oh, the game plan is fine. Yeah. But preparing the players, coaching the players, and having them ready to play the game have all been an abject failure.
And that's part of the coaching. And by the way,
it also looks like you've lost the locker room, which once you lost the locker room,
done.
There's no going back.
Exactly. That you don't get it. You don't gain them back. It just doesn't work like that. But you know who the third member of that group of coaches they almost hired, the one that they did not offer. Do you know what the third one was? It was Joe Barry. It was Jim Leonard, who they offered initially. He declined. Then they gave the job to Joe Barry. Do you know who the third guy was? Who I wanted them to hire? Evero for the Broncos, their defensive coordinator. He was the Rams assistant, but now he is the Broncos defensive coordinator.
Oh, he was the other Rams assistant that people were talking about. They should have hired him. I do remember that now that
the Broncos defensive coordinator on coordinating one of the best defenses in the league, and he's getting a lot of head coaching buzz. So missed on that one.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, they need a new DC. I don't know what they're going to do there, but they need a new one. Let's kind of wrap this up and talk about. I guess let's first talk about teams' biggest needs this offseason. I think we're kind of in lockstep on this one. Obviously,
we talked about them pouring resources into the defense. It's time to do some more.
We talked about this position-wise. I think number one is safety. They're already benching Savage, and they're going to lose Amos. So they pretty much need two more safeties, or we're going to see something similar to the Kentrell Bryce Haha years, which were so very hard to watch.
The only thing I could see on the roster right now for future safeties
is Ford
or
Douglas.
Combo.
Exactly. That might be what they have to do. And then they need another edge, because I think they're going to have to lose Preston this offseason, and we've seen what the defense looks with Preston and no Gary. Imagine no Preston either. It's not good. I know they hit on Enigbare, but they need more edge depth. They really do. It seems like they hit on Enigbare. We'll see. Interior D-line third. Really sucks because they just took one in the first round and you can't play. But they're going to need to hit that again.
If we can't play, they don't put him on the field.
Fourth, tight end. It's a barren wasteland. It's really bad.
The problem with tight end is they'll draft a tight end, but it'll be 3 years before he's good enough to really contribute, because that's how long tight ends take.
Yeah, and then fifth wide receiver. I think they do need another one. They need more playmakers on offense, but it does look like they have good players in both Watson and Dobbs. I can't wait to see at the end of the year to be able to see both of them together. That's probably what I'm holding out hope for, most excited for the rest of the year, is to watch them play together, because that sounds exciting. What do we want to see the rest of the season, Dad? I said I wanted to see 2 full games of Jordan Love. I want to see the culture stay intact. I think they did a good job, like we said in this game, of not giving up when it would have been easy to. I mean, they were down 13-0 before they even rolled the defensive intros for the Eagles. Like, they hadn't even introduced the Eagles players yet. And then I want to see that Watson-Dobbs pairing, like I said. Those are the things I'm looking forward to.
I want to see more, and on top of that, I want to see more of the young players playing more snaps. I want to see more Wyatt. I want to see some more Toure. I want to see what he's got as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I
don't need to see Sammy again. Don't need to see Sammy get another snap.
I know you can do this with the offensive line, because the offensive line, you need the whole group. I'd like to see a little bit more of Zach Tom, but I don't think you can't tinker with the offensive line in the same way. So I don't think we'll get to see much of Zach Tom or Rasheed Walker. And Tariq,
we're not seeing any more Sean Ryan.
No, and Tariq Carpenter seems to be just a special teams guy.
That's fine. It is. It's a 7th round pick. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of
those
Collins
other guys for sure,
and Ford and Nick and Rudy Ford and Nixon.
The rest of the season is seeing what you got for next year and who can fill these vital roles that are going to be vacated by the veterans. That's kind of all we got for you guys today. You got anything else you want to say to the dear people, Dan?
I think that's all I've got to add today.
If you're still listening,
it's going to be a busy offseason. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff going on.
There's going to be a whole lot of stuff going on, and we hope you come here and listen with us, and listen to us have little tantrums and have little breakdowns and have some fun. It can
get excited about players we don't end up drafting.
Exactly, all the fun stuff. And we appreciate if you're still listening, that you're still listening with us. This is the longest we've ever had an episode go. And we appreciate that you're still listening. But with all that said, thanks for coming along for the ride for us and hopefully sticking out the ride with us the rest of the way. Like we said, follow us on Twitter at FatherSonPackers. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.